Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel, Romel, Private Investigator. Good to see you all. I hope you all are doing well, especially considering some of the things we have going on now. It's very unfortunate, that incident at the Oscars. What are you going to do? People have their situations, they have their problems. In any event, one of the things I wanted to do, for starters, is to thank you. Thank you very much, subscribers, for your subscriptions. Thank you for your comments. It's well appreciated. I'll try my best to live up to your presumptive expectations. Now, now we have one subscriber. I believe she's a subscriber. Barbara Jackson. I think I got that right. Barbara Jackson. A shout out to you. She sent a comment that I thought was very interesting. She made mention of a couple of things. What I recall off the top of my head is something associated with warrants. Presumably, I don't know how true it is, but somehow she's under the impression or knowledge that there have been a couple of warrants that have been issued in respect to the Jelani Day incident. This is this particular video she makes a comment on is the Jelani Day, A Mother Cries. I believe that's the one. So what I like to go over today, and just let me preface it by saying this. I'm not an attorney, nor do I need to be. With what I will be going over, it's associated with the experience that I've had through the years as it relates to warrants, varied warrants. And I do this because a lot of times people looking at these programs, they kind of associate it with what they see on television. Television gives you a slight glimpse of what actually takes place. I'll try to give you some additional foresight. Once again, shout out to Barbara Jackson. I appreciate you. And let's get it going. So when we look at warrants, more than likely, considering the Jelani Day matter, whatever warrant she may have been referencing, assuming these things have taken place, more than likely it's probably not an arrest warrant. If in fact it was an arrest warrant, that would have pretty much publicly came out. That, of course, an arrest warrant, you have a suspect that meets the provisions of what's called reasonable grounds to believe, probable cause, another expression. So in any event, more than likely it's a search warrant. And as many of you may know, that there's a lot associated with obtaining a search warrant. You can't, the police can't simply say that, gee, I think that we can find some evidence in, let's say, House B, for example's sake. We can find evidence in House B, and the reason we believe we can find evidence in House B is because I've seen some people going in and out. I think there's a little something going on there. So you might see something like that on television, but it just does not happen that way at all. So where a warrant starts, if I can just give an example, and the warrant is something that's signed off by a judge. It will be petitioned to a judge through the police department, perhaps a prosecutor, and in some cases an indictment by a grand jury. That's how the process normally flows. And a warrant is something that has to be very specific, very specific. So in short, what I'm saying to you is this: it can't be a fishing expedition. Well, let me see if I can somehow get access to this dwelling, I think I'll probably find something. I hope. I hope. So it can't be done. It can't be done that way. So what happens is it kind of starts off with the when these things are being drafted, the police officer, in many cases, the police officer is going to give it to a prosecutor. The prosecutor will make an application or petition to the judge for the warrant to be issued and then subsequently executed, as the expression would go. So when the police are putting together a warrant, there's a lot of things they have to be responsible for. One of those things is you have to show your expertise in the area of concern. Let's say if it's a criminal matter, if you're a drug investigator or perhaps a homicide investigator, whatever the case might be, you show your experience, your training. In other words, you're trying to convince the judge that your information, I won't even say suspicion, but your information is going to meet the criteria of probable cause without question. And so you talk about your experience, you talk about your training, you talk about the information that you have that will lead one reading your application, if you will, that certain items are likely to be found in a particular dwelling, assuming that this is for a house. Now, in that process, what you also have to do is you have to describe the house. You can't just have the house number. You know, sometimes you have a house number, the houses in that area, they all look similar. So you have to uniquely identify the house such that there's no question that you are going to the correct premises. Any surveillance that has been taking place, the activities there that represent the information and evidence that one can reasonably believe that a particular item is going to be in that household. So let's say, for example's sake, when we think about Jelani Day, the license plates. Let's say those license plates were never recovered. And you have some people who have been talking to some other people. And in talking to those other people, it's been disclosed that in a particular dwelling, someone lives there, perhaps a friend, an associate, and that particular person is saying, they're talking about the incident. They're talking about specific things associated with the criminal act. And that they were somehow involved in it, either bragging or whatever the situation might be. And they actually have the plates. It's like a little souvenir for them. This is an example now. They have a little souvenir, and the souvenir being those plates. And so that conversation with another person, a third party, that third party goes to the police. So do the police in that information, do they have enough to petition for or make an application for a search warrant? So the answer to that question is no. That's not so. You don't know if the person's being truthful about what they're saying. Contrary to that. Now follow me. I know some of this for some of you might be a little bit boring, and sometimes that's the way information is. But it's better to know than not to know. Keep that in mind. So moving forward, let's go a little deeper. So now what happens is, let's say one of the persons who's making this information available to the police has stated that they have been in the household. They have been shown the plates. They know that the plates belong to the vehicle because they've had conversation perhaps with a member of the family that has identified the specific plate number. Now we have a different situation. And so what happens is what also has to happen is that information would also be put forward in the application for the warrant. And when and if, and more than likely it would be issued, in a situation like that, what will happen is that warrant's going to designate the specificities associated with the house. The warrant's going to designate any particular person that's directly involved in that interaction. Person saying, well, John Doe specifically said, and so forth. And I was with John Doe at the time that I observed those plates. And John Doe specifically said they're always kept in the bedroom, the top drawer. So what will happen when that warrant is drafted, it's going to note a specific location. The police cannot come in and just go throughout the entire house. However, if in fact, as far as plain view is concerned, if the police go in and they actually see something that may relate to the criminal offense at hand, they can lawfully seize, not just see, but literally seize and take that information. And of course, when they do that, they have to produce some written information as to what they took from the household, where exactly that information was found. And so I'm generalizing, because to get too specific, you really need a lawyer to sit down and go through all the ins and outs of that sort of thing. But I'm generalizing because at the very least, you have a better understanding. Now, once the prosecutor gets that information, the prosecutor will look through that information to make sure that information is complete, it's full, it's in full compliance. And then, of course, that application is forwarded to a magistrate, a judge. The judge will sign off. The judge will specify oftentimes a time interval within X amount of days, within X amount of hours. This has to take place. The specifics of the who, persons or things that are to be examined or subject to seizure. And when those things are done, this is how the police have to execute that particular warrant. Anything found beyond the scope of the warrant becomes something that, for the most part, is going to be inadmissible. The only exception being something that's in plain view when you are conducting your search. Now, another thing that was mentioned, in brief, I'll say this. Another thing that was mentioned was, I think she mentioned things were kind of quiet following the presumptive warrant or warrants. And I think she mentioned the attorney's name, Benjamin Crump. And I kind of get the feeling she thought things were kind of being, let's say, downplayed some sort of way. Now, if I misunderstood it, Barbara Jackson, please forgive me. I'm only human. Or at least I try to be. Okay, let me stop playing. So, if you listen, law enforcement has to be very careful with the information that they put out there. And the main reason is it can thwart their investigation to a point where something that can be very viable and helpful has now been watered down and fizzled down to virtually nothing, because the parties or persons of concern have been made aware that they are subject, or that something associated with them, be it their vehicle, their phone, etc., are subject. And so that's information they're going to try to destroy to protect themselves from any possible involvement, be it that involvement an arrest, or let's say being a witness that really doesn't want to be a witness, and all that sort of thing. So in any event, I try not to make this video too long. I appreciate you guys taking your time to review it, and pay close attention to these things. They help you get a better understanding of how the system works. You never know. You never know when something like this may happen to you or someone that you know. This puts you in a position to be more helpful, especially when interacting with the police. As I always say, dream with purpose, act with intent, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know when the videos come out. Leave a comment. I'll always get back to you on your comments.